I've had my ups and my downs.
Phelps with 10 meters left. 3 minutes too good. The crowd roaring. Freeman wins gold.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of the Physical Performance Show, the show that takes you behind the curtain of the lives of the world's most inspiring and peak physical performers. Today, you're in for a real treat. I'm sitting down having a fireside chat with Robbie Quatro, 2014 World Masters Natural Bodybuilding Muscle Mania Champion, also the owner of 360 Health, right here on the Gold Coast, Australia. Robbie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brad, for having me here. It's a real honour and a privilege to be here, so thank you.
And Robbie, I like to start with something straight out of the gate, and that is, what's one thing that scares you the most?
One thing that scares me the most? Oh, wow, that's throwing me right out. What scares me the most?
And listeners, just to give you a picture of who I'm sitting with here, we'll put some pictures of Robbie competing up in the show notes, but you would look at this gentleman and wouldn't think much would scare him, so I'm going to be really intrigued with his answer.
Oh, scares me the most, not succeeding, not doing my best.
What is it about that, Robbie?
Oh, look, everything I do, I like to give it 100%, and I would hate to be in a competitive situation and getting up on stage or whatever it is and, not giving my 100%. Yeah, just not being ready for it.
Have you ever experienced that, Robbie, in your career?
Yes, I have. And it was challenging, but at the same time, it gave me a whole lot more get up and go that little bit harder and go that extra distance the next time around. How
did you feel getting off the stage at that particular event?
Disappointed, felt very flat. But again, it was something that I could quickly leave behind and get on with looking what I'm going to do next to succeed and make sure I go to the next level.
And would you say, Robbie, you're a natural, that's built in you, you're an optimist?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. I always like to look at the optimists, always try to pick something out that was good and take that one thing, whatever it is, and use that to motivate myself to move forward.
It's great. And it's interesting that it's a consistent answer that I get from show guests, Robbie, is that one thing that scares them the most, not succeeding. Whether that's riding, driving supercars or riding super bikes or, Masters Bodybuilding, championships. It's a funny, not funny, but it's a nice, consistent answer that we get. So it tells me something about peak physical performance, right?
Yep.
There's certain expectations you have of yourself, and not living up to those can be a real, a force for driving us forwards. Robbie, what would you rate in your career, and we're going to get into how your career started and the origins of it, but straight out of the gate, what would you rate as your greatest physical accomplishment to date in your career?
Greatest physical accomplishment? I would say when I fought as a professional fighter, taking on the challenge of doing something that was way, way out of my comfort zone, not having an amateur career and going straight into professional fighting with no experience whatsoever, and also stepping on the stage, which actually was a world title undercard. So it was very nerve-wracking, and I found myself in that position where I wanted to give up, and it was something that I had to really dig deep on the inside and find what I was really made of, and that would have to be it. I think getting through the fight, not actually winning the fight, but just getting through to the end of the fight and finding that, you know, that eye of the tiger, or finding that what, you know, you got deep down inside yourself to move forward. So yeah, that was probably one of my greatest accomplishments.
I want to dig deeper if I can, Robbie, on this. So you were an amateur fighter.
No amateur career.
No, sorry, you said no. So you went from no amateur career straight into professional ranks.
Straight into professional.
Okay, talk us through the steps. How did that happen? Unpack that.
I've always had a passion for boxing,
yeah.
And you know, it was late in my life. I was just over 35 years of age, and I've always wanted to fight. And I knew that I couldn't fight as an amateur because a lot of people at my age would have probably had, you know, 20, 50 fights by then, so their experience was way higher. So, you know, it was better for me to jump straight into the professional arena, even though these guys have all had fights as well, but the style of fighting is a little bit different. And I just wanted to take the challenge on, and you know, taking that challenge on, it was exciting, very nerve-wracking, very testing. There was it was an emotional roller coaster. Prepping for it, but yeah, that was the first part of it, and I just found myself, you know, here I was on fight night on one of the biggest fight cards probably on the Gold Coast at the time, and it was a night to remember.
How many rounds did you go for?
It was only a 4-rounder,
right?
But it felt like a 12-round fight. I was depleted probably in the first. I think I went out and gave everything I had in the first 2 minutes, and I remember sitting down. I couldn't move my arms. It was the worst nightmare that you could possibly. I think, you know, like I thought, well, I've never been so physically exhausted in my life, and it was a real mental challenge to get out there and complete the rest of the fight.
So, talk us through what was going through your head when you gloved up, the bell's rung, and you boys are yet to, you know, swing the first punch. Like, what is going through your head as you're about to deal straight into a professional fight? Can you remember?
I was actually really, really nervous, I just remember the adrenaline was pumping through my body. I didn't know. Well, it's the unknown. It's like, I suppose, if you've never skydived and you go to jump out of a plane, you're trying to work out everything that's going to actually happen, but you don't know till you jump out. And it was probably the same thing as going into the ring as a fighter. I understood why you have an amateur career, because you sort of go through all these things at a younger age, so when you hit the professional stage, you're ready for anything that comes at you. So it was just, you know, winging it, you know. And you know, even stepping in the ring, the guy wasn't as big as me, probably wasn't as conditioned as me, and he still wasn't scared of me. And you know, so that really sort of put me off. Like, there was so much that was involved. You know, there's a lot of mind games, obviously, that's, you know, getting ready for that fight. But yeah, I was very nervous, and you know, my peripheral vision, I remember very clearly, it was gone. I only had this tunnel vision. I couldn't see anything around me. So when that bell went, it was just, I could just hear the crowd going ballistic, and
adrenaline.
Yeah, and adrenaline was just pumping. I knew just slow down, and it was like I just kept going harder. And I actually thought that I'd hurt him, and I was going to knock him out. And I actually became friends with the guy, and he actually even said he thought, well, either he's going to kill me in the second round because he's that fit, or he's going to punch himself out. And that's exactly what I did. I punched myself out, so I was so tired, and he just fought his way back and beat me by a point. So
is that 1 point after the 4 rounds?
Yeah, it was a 1-pointer.
So did you carry on with any fighting after that?
I wanted to go back and sort of redeem myself, because I knew that I could, you know, I was better than that, you know, because everything that I'd learnt just went out the door, and I really wanted to go back, you know, straight away and take that challenge on. And, you know, because I always believed that, you know, I had the ability to be good as a boxer, just things of when I was younger probably didn't line up, and certain things sort of, you know, probably took in play where it stopped me from doing that. And I was at a point in my life where actually the big reason was behind it. I grew up, I didn't want to be a gunner. You know, I said I was going to fight, and I wanted to, you know, even if it was one fight, I was going to do it. So that was the reason why I wanted to get out there and actually have this professional fight. And then, like, when I just didn't succeed to, you know, as good as my expectation of what I wanted to, I had to get back out there and do it again. and I fought probably about 16 weeks later, and still lost. This was on TV now, so it was in front of more people.
What was the points difference?
1 point again.
You're kidding.
Oh, it was again.
How many rounds?
It was a 4-rounder.
Yeah.
It was against the same guy, and it was
the same guy.
It was a ripper fight because he was actually obviously more prepared for the fight as well. And this guy he'd had 4 professional fights and 14 amateur fights, so he knew what he was doing. And but at the same time, I was really happy with the performance, and I knew that if this was something that I continued to keep doing, and if I knew if I started at a young age, I would have had a good career out of it. And it was just good to get out there and fulfill that goal that I've always wanted to do. And it was good to live that dream, so it was good.
So, Robbie, and obviously you've since gone into the bodybuilding world.
Yep.
So, just to unpack the story, what kept you from pursuing your boxing dream up until really the age of 35?
Yep. Well, I started off as a rugby league football player, and a few things didn't go my way early on when I was younger, and had a bit of a dark spot as a youngster, and then came back, and people had said to me I was too old to play football. I was only 17 and I probably could have played, but I obviously listened to the wrong people. Got myself into bodybuilding. Obviously really enjoyed boxing, but I just felt that bodybuilding was going to be more of an opportunity because it would become sort of like a big thing in the 80s and 90s.
Yep.
And so I took that path and did that for 12 years. And, obviously that didn't go where I wanted it to go either. It was just, because of where the sport was, it was very hard to grow unless you had a lot of money to succeed to the next level. And that didn't guarantee you anything either. So I had a break, and that's when I thought, look, I want to give boxing a crack, and, got into it and took on that challenge because it was just a totally different sport and a totally different everything. And, I had to really sort of changed my whole from my physique and the way I trained, and from being so stiff and just very one-dimensional to into the boxing world, which was a totally contrast. But it was good to get in there and have a crack at it.
So do you have any regrets, Robbie, about not following through on your rugby league career? Was that your first passion?
Yeah,
was that your first passion?
It was my first passion. I mean, yes and no. I've learned to live in regret. I've been very blessed to find other sports that I've excelled in. I even had an opportunity where I played a game of almost basically first grade rugby league, one match. Just after the boxing, so it was really good to get back on and have a game of footy, and excelled, played in that too. Very sore for a week after it.
Which were you sore from, the boxing match or the footy?
No, the footy match. I was dead. I played against, I was like, I think 38. Yeah. And I think these guys are all like 25, quite fit. So it was just good to just get on there and have a crack again, and to be recognised after it. And a lot of the guys didn't even realise how old I was. And so I sort of felt like it was something that I knew if I did play, if I was young, it wasn't just something I was making up inside myself. I knew that I would have done well in it. But at the same time, I pretty much try to live in the future and live for the now. And I think if you live with too much regret, you sort of don't press forward. And obviously I wanted to lead me into winning my world title in natural bodybuilding in 2014.
So let's go there now, Robbie. So 2014, we shifted over to the 2014, you took out the World Bodybuilding Championships, natural bodybuilding, over in Las Vegas.
Yes.
Take listeners through the journey you went through in getting there. Yeah. Because that's the pinnacle of your natural bodybuilding career to date.
Yep. That's correct.
So, unpack the journey.
Okay, so 2012, I obviously decided to, stop the boxing, and I was sort of in a bit of a place of what to do next. I had a friend who, asked me about, can you get him ready for a natural bodybuilding comp? And natural bodybuilding wasn't around back in my day, and that was one of the big reasons why, I didn't continue with the bodybuilding because obviously, it's well known that there's a lot of drugs involved with bodybuilding. Not that I really care what people do in it, but it's a money thing, and to me it's a waste of money that doesn't really give you anything. So again, there was no natural bodybuilding. So when this guy said, can I get him ready for a comp, I thought, let's do it. And so when I took him actually to the comp, I was pretty impressed of how much it had grown, and very competitive. But at the same time, I felt it was something that I felt straight away in myself. I thought, wow, I could, be good at this. And so I decided actually just before that, I'd snapped my bicep and had a whole reconstruction on my bicep, rebuilt again. So that was the reason actually I stopped boxing. And so it was sort of like, I thought, hang on, well, this is what I can actually use to get myself back into the game. And so I went into my first comp in 2012. 2013.
2013, first bodybuilding comp?
First bodybuilding comp back in, after 15, 16 years. I placed fourth in that. It wasn't my best, performance.
Yep.
And then after that...
It's not bad when it's not your best performance and you finish fourth.
Yeah, well, it was always something that I've always won.
Yep.
And it was something that I was actually really good. But everything it was sort of one of those things where I messed up. Everything that I got getting prepared for it just didn't go my way. So it was a good thing because it helped me to again, take some of the positives, and really I found that my worth wasn't in winning either, which was a good thing for me. So that helped motivate me to do. I think that was a big turning point in my life where I realised that I do this because I actually love it, not because I'm actually trying to get something from it. So that was a good thing. And then
finishing fourth.
Yep.
Really.
Yeah, and
took you on a journey of pulling that out.
Yeah, and it was also, I didn't really get noticed either. So that was really a bit of a thing where people didn't, even though I got fourth, it was nothing. It was like I thought, oh, okay.
As in people didn't
acknowledge it, like in the sport. Yeah,
didn't care
because it's all about them wanting you to win. So that sort of motivated me even a little bit more to press harder.
Okay.
The next year competed again here in Australia, which was the Asia Pacifics, and did really well.
Yep.
And then it was coming back up to that Queensland title again, and I thought, well, that was what I was actually leading all the way back up to. I just wanted to compete back in that title and do really well, because I didn't do really well
when you finished
it.
Yep.
And there was a comp also the day before, which was the Australian Musclemania, and I thought, well, I might as well give that a go because it's only the day before, and
before
the Queensland one, and I ended up winning that comp, but there was only two of us in there. But I was a little bit disappointed because I thought, oh, there's only the two of us, which is normally never the way. There's normally a large amount of people in there, but it seemed to be all the good bodybuilders were getting ready for this Queensland comp, because after the Queensland comp you got the Australians and other titles that are all around, right. And it was like everyone was using this comp to prep themselves for that. So the next day when I competed, you had the best bodybuilders in Australia and some of the best bodybuilders in the world competing in that division. I ended up finishing second, and I was actually really chuffed. It felt like I'd won. Yeah. And so then a couple of weeks later I got my invitation to go to Vegas, and I actually turned it down because I thought, well, there was only two of us competing. You have to give it to me because I'd won.
Yeah.
And and then the organizer sent back and said, no, look, we really believe that you got a good shot of winning this. And I had to make a quick decision, and a few people that I've had around me in my corner all felt that I should do it. And and I'm glad I went over because I won it. So it was a moment, especially when it came to the top five, when they called out the top five, and I sort of thought to myself, I don't want to place. I actually want to win this, because I haven't actually won besides the Australian for such a long time. And so when they called the numbers right down to one, I was just, give me my trophy, I'm out of here in case he's made a mistake.
So but in your head, Robbie, you had to be standing there as they announced the top five. You had known that you must have performed and been prepped and everything else and presented very well to even be thinking, hey, I want this, I want to win this?
Yeah, I knew I was like, like I said, besides that one comp, I've always been in really good condition when I compete, and I've always been, when I look at it, I've always been a top 3 competitor. I've never not ever been
outside the podium.
Outside that, and it was something that I needed to start to believe in myself as well. And so when it sort of came down to to the last, between me and the guy who comes second, I was like, wow. And then I was, because I suppose you doubt yourself. You look at everyone else and you sort of think, oh yeah, that guy's probably a little bit better, because I think it's just the way you are. It was pretty exciting.
So, and Robbie, I remember seeing on social media photos of yourself and another competitor who's incidentally your partner in your business, 360 Health, Mark, photos with Mike Tyson.
Yes.
On that trip to Vegas.
Yes, that was...
Where did Mike Tyson fit into the scheme?
Well, hey, look, I've always been a Mike Tyson fan, and, growing up my whole life watching his whole career, and when I knew that we were going to go to Vegas... I knew that he would be somewhere around, so I actually did a bit of...
He would be somewhere around?
Yeah, well, I knew that. I heard that he normally does signings.
Does he live in Vegas?
Lives in Vegas.
Okay.
So, I looked up where he was, and he just happened to be at that weekend at one of the motels just up the road, and, we were first on the card and saw him, so it was really good to get in there and... say hello and so it was a really good trip.
What was the conversation with Mike like?
Oh, look, there was... Well, actually, it was just ask how's he doing in life, obviously, and he was very expressive of, saying that he's very, he's come to a place in his life that he feels at peace. That were some of the words that he used, and that it's been, obviously a tough life for him, but he's... Again, he's a competitor. He's been able to, fight the adversity in his life and turn his life around and get it to a place of where he's now moving forward and trying to succeed as as normal as a human being could be, I suppose. So
as normal as a human being with Mike Tyson.
That's right.
His career, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we meet childhood sporting heroes of ours. There can be an or music, heroes, or there can be an afterwards sense of almost disappointment. Was there any of that with meeting Mike?
No, not at all. Like, actually, I wish I realised that I could have spoken more to him, and he would have been more than happy to, share more of his life with him. I was probably just, like I said, I was just a bit shocked. I can't believe I'm standing here and I'm shaking the hand of this guy. And, I think a lot of people actually, even to my mum, who's an Italian woman who knows nothing about sport, she even knows who Mike Tyson is, I don't think there's too many people that know who Mike Tyson is. So
exactly.
So it was a bit of an awe, being there.
Cool moment. Yeah. That was after you'd won the world title?
Yeah, that was actually, I went back again for the second time to do my world title, go for the second world title.
So that was the second trip, not the first trip.
No,
okay.
Second trip.
All right. So on that first trip, take listeners through, Robbie, what it takes in terms of preparation, because for many listeners, they won't be familiar with the rigours of prepping your body naturally for a competition, be it Australian, Queensland, or in this case, the world natural bodybuilding champs. Take listeners through a typical journey in prepping for one of these comps. What do you do?
For myself, obviously as life has, grown, I've grown as a person, and I've realised that, making sure having the right people around you is obviously very important, and that's obviously where my business partner Mark comes into it. He's got a degree as a dietitian. I know a lot about food, but there's a reason that people go to university and they study, and these are the areas that they're what they work in. So I really believe in making sure that I bring the people who know what they're doing in the areas that I need to make me successful, not try and think that I know everything. And so he helped me a lot with my food, which made it a lot easier, because there's a lot of fads out there and a lot of crazy stuff and a lot of things that work.
In terms of preparing for these events.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
So, the variety of food made it a lot easier. So that wasn't so hard on the system of, being, boring with my food, I suppose. That's because that's obviously the biggest part of preparing for a comp. And then there's the mental side of it, making sure that you have, like I said, having the right people around you, people who believe in you, people who, aren't going to, put you down while you're going through this process, because there can be negativity in everything you do. So I think it's very important that you have the, optimists and the positive people around you, because there's obviously days you want to not train and there's days that you don't want to do things, and having those sort of people around you will help you and push you towards,
Have you found, Robbie, in terms of so my background is, obviously running and triathlons and that world. And for me, I look at you guys preparing for a comp and the physical training side of things. I'd be like, I think I could do that. But when it comes to the strict disciplines, if you'd call it strict disciplines from the observation point of view, that's what it appears to be. I've looked at it and gone, I don't think I could ever do that, because I don't think I could. So I've admired you guys with, when I say guys and girls as well that prepare for these comps, out of a place of feeling like I don't know if I could be so focused on my nutrition. I feel as a runner I get a bit of liberty there. Like I eat well, no doubt about it, but I don't micro count things. Is it correct? Is my observation correct that you as you prep, you guys are micro counting ratios and calories?
Yeah. I mean, there is obviously that involved with it. But again, like when it comes to competition time, like, dieting is only like probably about a 14-week prep.
14 weeks out.
14 weeks out. So it's only really in that 14 weeks that that's the sacrifice. And again, I think with any sport, when you find your discipline, you'll be disciplined to it. Like if I'm not competing, I can't. I wouldn't stick to that type of rigor. Diet plan, because it's just no lifestyle in it, because I do like to enjoy my life, but I really make sure. I think the plan is like after the competition to make sure you keep a nice balanced lifestyle, and that obviously helps when it comes back getting ready for a competition. A lot easier. Some people will blow themselves right out, so then everything becomes harder, and it becomes more of a real mind battle effect as well.
So can you describe a typical day, say 2 weeks out, or even a week out from a major competition? What would your training and dietary intake look like on a typical day?
Look, I'm pretty blessed. I eat a lot of food. Again, the only thing is a lot of it is the same food. That's probably the hardest part of getting ready for a competition. So, I probably eat 6 meals a day.
That sounds good.
Yeah, 6 meals a day. And all my meals will consist of carbohydrate, protein, and vegetable. I probably get a little bit stricter with taking some salts out of my body, just to try and, just get that little bit of a hardness and a leaner look in the muscle. I don't deplete myself of water or anything like that, or I don't sort of believe any of those tricks really work. Leading into the comps, it's quite easy. It's more of a, trying to be as relaxed as I can. My training does change a little bit. Obviously, probably do a whole lot of high rep stuff. Just get really more of a pump in that week. There's not much else that I can really do. I've done all the hard work. It's just basically getting myself probably a lot more posing, because that obviously helps with, just bringing out the water and stuff out of your skin. And obviously that's the biggest part. That's the fight on stage as you're posing, making sure that you got good posing to bring out all your hard work.
And Robbie, what's the weirdest thing you've seen someone do to prepare or heard about?
I've seen some crazy stuff. People, obviously dropping water for a few days.
Is it not drinking for a few days?
Yeah, not drinking for a few days. And, obviously using that, thinking that it's going to dry them out and it's going to obviously make them look a lot sharper on stage. But, they're doing a lot of things that can be obviously not good for your health. Bodybuilding has come a long way, again with good nutrition and the right dieting. Leading into the comp, it can actually be a healthy sport. And the hardest part of it will be just being disciplined for the 13 or 14 weeks of prepping for a comp.
And do you find the less falls, because surely you must have falls as in the sense of you fall off the program over the 13 to 14 weeks, you have a tired day. I know when I'm tired and I haven't got enough sleep the night before, my caloric intake the next day is disproportionately larger than if I hadn't gotten enough sleep. Surely there must be those.
Yeah, of course.
ups
I
and
mean,
downs in 13, 14
and I
hours.
think like if you live, and this is what we try and teach all our athletes, a balanced lifestyle in competing and not competing. So when you are competing, if you do, because there's going to be days that you're going to mess up, but because you've had this balance, it shouldn't affect you, too much at all. So you have room to make mistakes, and I think that's a good way of being. Like I think if you're too hard on yourself and you can't make mistakes, well, it's just going to mess your head up.
So you actively, in your business now, which is a large part of it's getting athletes ready for these competitions, that's sort of the philosophy that you espouse.
Yep. Yeah, and try to, obviously prep people probably a little longer than normal, because then if they prep a little longer, they can, like I said, there leaves room for error.
Yeah, okay.
I like getting people so that they're ready a couple of weeks out from the comp, and if they're ready a couple of weeks out, there's, a lot of things that we can adjust with, and if anything's sort of messed up or, it just seems a lot easier coming into competition day.
And that same principle applies, in a lot of the work I do in physiotherapy is in the running space. And, people will often be prepping for a marathon, and it's the same thing. The longer runway they've got, the more room for programming well and enough adequate rest and not spiking loads and potentially ending up injured. So it's an interesting principle that transcends any performance, right? Robbie, you mentioned that there's an unhealthy side of it. You said that you've seen some things that just potentially compromise people's health as they prep for these competitions. And I don't just think this would be unique for bodybuilding. I think if we were to run a microscope across most physical endeavours where there's peak performance involved, there's going to be unhealthy behaviours, whether they're legal or illegal. You're going to get that. And I think with more money coming into sports, my observation is it's probably more prolific than ever, right?
Yep.
But have you, in your experience, you said it happens a lot in the world of bodybuilding, ever been disappointed by, without naming names, because that's not what this is about, but with a competitor where, they were later tested as positive, and has that happened in your career?
Actually, no, it hasn't. It hasn't happened, not to date, and everyone's obviously been tested through this process. So no, I haven't had that experience. And I think if it did happen, obviously they'll be they're stripped of their title, and whoever was meant to win will end up winning the competition anyhow. So, but it's been very I think it's just one of those things. I think in this sport, like if you're going to do it, there's obviously avenues that you can do it. Yeah. And and if you're choosing not to do it, then great. You're being tested through, and the organisation that obviously I'm involved with, all the competitors are tested. It's not just random. Yeah. Which is good. So it really sort of sets a foundation for a lot of people before they even decide to join up and do that federation and go through that.
So is there a fair sort of almost like an unspoken rule amongst the natural bodybuilding world that, hey, we just don't go there?
No, everyone will say someone's using something.
So there's an at events, there's normally a degree of skepticism.
Big time, without a doubt. Really but at the same time, you can see the difference.
So you can actually.
I feel you can. I've met guys and I've seen them myself, and I just know that they're just genetically gifted. That's just it's the way it is, and there's just something a little bit different about it. But I just don't really sort of worry about it. I just do my best, and it's easier. I think if you start to focus too much into it, it can really put you off your game, like I said, if someone chooses to do it, well, that's their choice, and so be it, and I'll just keep focusing and doing what I do. So
and I think that ties back into your revelation you had when you finished fourth in a competition that actually you're doing it because you love it, and the results, you obviously want to seek your best. And if that happens to be good enough for world champion, which it was, then great. And if it's not, then you're still giving your best, right?
That's right.
And I agree. It's an interesting place and space. I actually, I can only imagine a professional level, when these Olympic Games come through in Rio, and, it seems to be every Olympic Games there's some retrospective changing of the podium order through to some. So, but I don't think, if we all just thought, well, there's no point in trying, then,
That's right.
What would we do? So, and it'd be interesting to go back through history. I think this is just something that's part of all sports through years, and people trying to find their best. But that's really encouraging to hear. So, Robbie, what would you say is one key performance tip you'd give to physical performers in general about how to get to their physical best? What's a philosophy you live by?
Look, I think visualization. I think, visualizing and seeing that you can do it. And then once you've taken that on, I very much set up my day every day. The first thing I do before any social media, before anything else, is I'll set my day on, some positive affirmation. Obviously that mine's through my own faith life, and set myself and seeing myself in that optimist realm of succeeding. And I think you have to have that, otherwise you'll be with that 97% who actually want to do it, but I think it's like they say, the 3% will actually get down there, write it and visualize and see it and make it happen. And I think that's always been my success in and whatever I've done, is focusing on everything that I do and seeing myself actually performing and seeing the end result.
And so will you visualize yourself lifting a certain load? And certainly.
I like to always, before every training session, probably half an hour, I always take a bit of time straight away to start thinking about what I'm going to train and how I'm going to train it, and seeing how I'm going to perform in it. I make sure that I always set targets to do better than what I did the previous session, because I believe if you do the same thing, you're going to get the same result. I think if you keep changing, you got to keep getting better. So,
did you visualize yourself winning the world title?
I'm not going to lie.
In all honesty,
no. Look, I think I dreamt it without a doubt. And I dreamt that I'd feel really good. The experience of doing it, winning it. I think that's where after that I started to realise in myself I can do it. I always believed I could do it. It was just a little bit of a click. I realised the importance too for me being a dad and not having a father in growing up. The importance of what it is having a father around you, or having that positive influence around you. Just having someone who believes in you. And I think that was the key shift when that actually happened in my life. I think, as a dad now, I make sure my son looks at me or my daughter looks at me, Dad, can I do it? And they can see that if I actually, you can. It's like they know they can. And I think that's probably what it was when I actually, won that world title. I realised to myself, I can do it, and it was, I just...
real shift in belief.
Exactly, yeah.
And it's interesting that as you sharing that story, Robbie, it made me think of when I grew. My childhood dream was represent Australia triathlon, go on to win Olympic Games and that sort of thing. That path never followed through for me, but years later in that 30 to 34 bracket, I went to the World Championships, part of the Australian age team, and picked up a silver medal and just missed the win. And I remember after that having a sense of wow, actually, I always suspected I had what it took, but now I've really just shown for myself that I do. But it wasn't just for the sport of triathlon. The next day I went and did a bungee jump, and the thought of that terrified me. Hey, I can do it. Yeah. So isn't it funny how, and whether we win world titles or finish second or finish 31st or, wherever, it's about this. I love that belief that achieving some physical accomplishment gives people, whether it's their first time marathon or the first time running 10k or whatever it is. Isn't it a beautiful thing? Physical achievements, how it can really bolster that self-belief and self-worth.
Big time. And I think as we've even spoke about, I think my greatest achievements have been in my actual defeat. I've always said if you're not big enough to win, if you're not big enough to win, if you're not big enough to lose, you're not big enough to win. Like it's like I've learnt that defeat. I can if you can't handle defeat, then winning's just like they say it's just an empty cup. So I've learnt a lot in that. Like I said, myself as a person, and you grow. I think in leaps and bounds with that. So
beautiful. Robbie, what's on your bucket list in sporting life coming up? What have you got?
I really want to, like I said, this year I've never been a person to let age deter me from anything. So I've got my goals set on becoming a pro in natural bodybuilding, which takes me to a whole nother level, which takes you a level of, being paid as the athlete as well. And hopefully, if I can get that pro card, I can go back overseas as a pro and, again, compete with the big guns. So,
any events coming up specifically?
Yeah, there's one coming up in 5 weeks' time, 4.5 weeks' time, the Asia Pacific here on the Gold Coast. Yep. And, they're having their first pro show in that. So I'll be competing in that. I got an invitation for that. So, I'll be getting in there.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And right now, what's your training week look like, Robbie, in preparation for this?
Just day by day, really just taking on day by day too, and just making sure that, just completing, making sure that, get through each day with my food, get through each day with my training, and getting plenty of rest, and just trying to enjoy the journey, which has been really good this time around. So,
how many hours would you be doing resistance work for?
Training?
Typically through a week?
An hour is probably the most amount of time that I, will train in the gym. Yep. If I can do less, I'll do less.
For one whole entire session?
One whole entire session.
Yep.
I try to keep my sessions, short and effective. And a lot of my stuff is based on recovery and rest.
Can you unpack that recovery rest a bit more?
Recovery, is based around my food and supplement taking. Everything is very important. Before training, through training, and after training. So my biggest focus is around that, like where I take my supplements and take my food to help with that recovery, and then sleep is a big part of it. And that's what they've really sort of found with science and a lot of research now. The less is better. So it's been really good for
less sleep or less
training.
Yeah, more sleep
for resting and recovery. In my sport, because it helps with the growth factor. So that's where a big part of your growing is while you're sleeping.
And I really enjoy the fact that it seems to be, I don't know if you agree, Robbie, but this awakening of awareness about the importance of sleep, whereas potentially over previous decades it's been a badge of honour to not get much sleep because you're so busy getting stuff done. I feel like there's a bit of momentum shifting where
that's right.
People are now starting to recognise that robbing or depriving yourself of sleep consistently ongoing, there's going to be occasions. I'm about to have our second, I'm having, but my wife and I about to have a second baby, so there'll certainly be occasions coming in a few months for us as a household, but I think that's a really healthy thing. Would you agree?
Yes, that's right. I think it's been a good thing for me getting a lot more sleep. So, and I feel, especially this time around, I feel more recharged, especially obviously with work and stuff like that. So we've been really focusing a lot on that.
How many hours do you get normally in prep mode on average?
I try to get at least 8 hours a night if I can.
I've got sleep envy, Robbie.
Maybe 7 is probably what I do get. For some reason, when you diet, you seem to go to the toilet a lot. So like you're always up going.
Okay. Go in the bathroom.
Go those extra couple of wees. But if I can get a little kip through the day, I'll get a kip.
Yep, nice.
So it's nice, yeah.
How long is your kip?
Half an hour.
Half an hour?
Yeah.
And does it take you a while to switch off when you lay down, or are you pretty much
just switch off? Obviously I do a lot of training people, motivating people. It's good to go home and have that little kip because it actually really helps me recharge and go back for round two of motivating and keeping people on track again. So.
And do you find as a fitness professional in the personal training, preparing athletes for competition space, that you get that you have to recharge your batteries or your effectiveness decreases?
Yeah, especially taking on a lot of the roles of helping people getting ready for a competition now, and there's a lot of people we train or get ready, which is their first competition. So there's a lot of people, they're nervous and they're freaking out. So the big factor of what I do is motivating and keeping people positive and keeping them obviously believing in us that they're going to get to the end result. The whole thing is for them to trust us and help take away some of that stress that they will feel of the unknown. And so there's a lot of the emotional roller coaster ride with them. So you got to be on top of that all the time.
What's one message you share with these first timers regularly? What's one thing you hear yourself saying often to these first time competitors?
You can only look. You prep, be the best you can, because you don't know who's going to turn up on the day. And we all train to win, but don't let that be the focus.
Nice.
Just be the best you can. Because like I said, in this sport, you don't know who's going to turn up.
Mike Tyson could turn up.
Exactly.
He did in Vegas. And Robbie, bringing the plane in for a land-in. Is there any hope for me?
There's plenty of hope for you. There's plenty of hope for you. I can see you've got good genetics. You could be the next muscle model.
I don't know how that'll translate to a fast marathon time. And Robbie, 2 more questions on your personal life. What's on the bucket list for yourself and your wonderful family, your wife Heidi, who also competes with you, and your children? Any bucket list items for you guys?
Look, to travel. Obviously, in a few years, we'd like to, as the kids get a little bit older, go back to my home country where my family comes from Italy, and spend some time over there and enjoy the Italian lifestyle.
Not in preparation for a comp?
No. I could, because there actually is a comp there. And over there, they've got a Musclemania comp in Rome, and that's where my dad's side's from. And obviously over there, they think I'm a superstar, so I could go back there and compete, so it could be nice.
Well, mate, I don't think it's just them in Italy. I think anyone that sees the photos in the show notes of you will think you're a superstar. Robbie, where can listeners find out more about natural bodybuilding and yourself specifically, 360 Health?
They can go to our website, which is www.team360health.com.au, and all the information about natural bodybuilding and the federation that we're involved with. And more than happy to help people from first time or people that have competed, for years, to help them get them, on track to winning and getting on stage and being the best they can.
Terrific. And social media, any handles specifically they can find you guys on?
On Instagram, Team 360 Health again, and also on Facebook, Team 360 Health.
And that's at 360 Health.
Yep.
Great. Robbie Quatro, I'm sitting opposite you for this interview, and I'm thinking that maybe one day I could pull it off. You've given me some belief.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad.
But on behalf of listeners, thank you for the candid interview, and we wish you all the best with the upcoming Asia Pacific Masters Championships.
Asia Pacific
Masters Championships, and the journey ahead. So thanks for being on the show.
Thank you, Brad, for having me.
Coming up on episode 13 of the Physical Performance Show, I have a chat with Nick Willis, 3 times New Zealand Olympic track sensation. He'll be heading off to Rio Olympics in just a few weeks' time to compete in the 1500 metres on the track. Nick is the 2008 Beijing silver medalist and is in the best shape of his life. You're going to love this interview. One of the most fascinating chats I've had with a high performer to date. He really lets us into the world of what it takes to run at a professional level, the highs, the lows, the scandals not involving Nick, and everything in between. Tune in next week, episode 13, The Physical Performance Show.